Hey everyone, we're back. It's Rabbi Shmuel Pollen with the Light into the Nations show. And as always, we have a book for sale. This one's called All In for God. You can read all about it at allinforgod.com.
All right, mate. It's wonderful to see you again. I remember when we first met, you said atheists can't win arguments, and you proved it by saying something really, really stupid. Good times. And, of course, you have a book to sell. What kind of charlatan, big brain, smart guy apologist would you be if you didn't have some way to fleece your audience? Anyway, what are we up to today?
We have a very special show for you today. We're going to do rapid fire 25 proofs that God definitely exists.
Of course, 25 proofs for the old God man and how he definitely does the real. Cool. Can't wait to see how you screw this one up right away. Also, the fact that he calls it rapid fire is hilarious because his video is 30 goddamn minutes long and absolutely chock full of pointless fluff. So we're going to do our best to move on when it's clear that his point is stupid and skip any bits where he's intent on wasting everybody's goddamn time. We don't want to be here all day. After all, there's important whiskey that needs drinking.
There could be more than 25. I could go up to 100 or even 1,000. Proof of God's existence is everywhere.
There could be, I suppose, but there also could be a zillion proofs that dragons are hiding just around the corner, waiting for you to look away so they can zip past because they forgot to bring a bath towel. It's just not very likely. And, the whole I have umpteen bajillion proofs that God does are real is less of a point in your favor than you think it is, since many, if not all of them, tend to be contradictory to either reality, each other, or both, making it a lot less useful than a handful of proofy boys that actually function well together and with reality. I wonder why you can't do that.
But first, we must define our terms because millions of hours have been spent arguing about God without ever giving God a definition. That's as good as arguing about whether a who's a what's it exists. You'll never get anywhere.
Defining your terms is great, but I think there's a reason that most theists don't do that. When you define a specific term for your God-man, it locks you down to that version, and any points of failure, which there will always be when you get definite about the guy, will immediately be exploited by arseholes like me. Better to keep shit nice and vague so that you can back out of any position you don't like with, well, obviously, I'm not talking about that kind of God.
But we will get somewhere because we are defining God as a being or beings that created the world before us from nothing.
It's funny that I said you should keep it vague, and you did, while also giving it qualities that many would disagree with even being a thing. Well done. It's a shit definition. What a surprise. First off, from nothing, how do you know that such a thing as nothing exists? Especially if you have a God that exists beyond that nothing. Well, one would assume that is in fact something. And of course, while you want your God to be the one that does the do, your definition covers such a vast possibility of other gods while ignoring many things that are claimed about yours. Well, it's hard to see what even the point of your definition is.
Let's start off with proof number 1, the atom. It's the essence of logic to say that when there is an effect, there is a cause that was capable of causing that effect. If the effect is, let's say, a particle accelerator, we must say that it was caused by a highly intelligent person. When we talk about the particle inside the particle accelerator, the atom, and we realize no human being can create something as small, powerful, and complex as an atom, that it must have been caused by a being far more intelligent than the scientists.
Wow, really not a strong start. It's basically the watchmaker argument, but somehow less good. It also makes the strange correlation between particle accelerators and looking at atoms, when particle accelerators are for experimenting on atoms. You would have been better served by talking about, like, an electron microscope or what have you. It's all a bit cart before the horsey, and it makes me think that you don't know what any of these things are. Second, the ability to see something and the assumption that it was made just because a thing we know was made is just an assertion without evidence. You only think it's made because you want it to be. Same way you only think humans could never make something that small, because if they do that, that's another thing that doesn't require an all-power boy. Oh, by the way, they totally do that. Oops.
Proof number 2, the synchronicity of nature. The mineral world, the vegetative world, and the animal world all work together seamlessly. One eats the other breathes the other's exhaust. They change color based on the season or the environment. We can watch thousands of hours of nature shows and still not grasp even a sliver of the majesty of nature. If creation is fueled by random events, there would be no such harmony. Therefore, these events are happening, by contrast, on purpose by the creator of nature, which is what a lot of people are calling God.
I mean, it's clear that you certainly will never understand what the hell is going on in nature, because you very clearly don't. Maybe you should try to learn about it from, science education resources rather than the damn TV. For one, you have misunderstood why things tend to fall into balance. It's not random at all. It's basically because they have to. It's the nature of reality. If you do something for long enough, it's going to eventually even out to some extent. My personal favorite example is if you pour sand onto a round table, then you are going to end up with a pretty uniform shape regardless of what it is that you might want it to become. And second, these systems fall out of balance all the time. That's why species go extinct. Areas of the world have climate change over time. These things aren't set in stone, quite literally, but if what you said was correct, it all should be.
Proof number 3, tradition from Adam, our family tree. What is history? Is not a huge part of history the testimony of men handed down from one generation to the next, like Josephus? What is genealogy? Is it not the science of being able to trace back our lineage to the Bible and therefore ultimately to the first man? And aren't the stories surrounding these human beings also part of genealogy? Well, our historic record that's been handed down by the Jews, aka the 3 million strong witness nation, is that the Bible is a true revelation from God. That revelation tells us a lot of history, and among that history is that Adam was the first man. And since stories surrounding genealogy are also part of genealogy, we must say the account of the Bible that God created Adam is true. This is a part of all of our family trees. If you trace back your lineage, if you're able to trace it back far enough, you will wind up tracing it back to the Bible, which will trace it back to Adam, which will trace it back to God. So God is part of your family tree.
I know that was a lot, but there is a lot to cover. For starts, this assumes that the Bible is accurate and correct when it really isn't, and that if anyone can trace their family back to events depicted in that book, that must mean that those events are facts, when that's not how that works. If I make up a story about my great-great-great-grandfather just because I can trace my line back to the guy, doesn't suddenly mean that he had the power to kill a yak from 200 yards away with mind bullets. Clearly that's nonsense, or my name isn't Sir Wonderboy Sick. Also, history isn't just what people wrote down. That's recorded history, sure, but it's prone to bias, speculation, and out-and-out fabrication. A far more important part of history is the analysis, figuring out fact from fiction, by comparing those essentially stories to what we know based on actual evidence, and whether or not that shit lines up. Which, funnily enough for the Bible, it rarely does, and never does for the magical ones.
We have a tradition from Sinai. Number 4, the more consistent eyewitnesses you have to an event, the more likely it is that it happened. If that's the case, the most well-proven event in history is the revelation of God at the giving of the Bible on the 6th of the Hebrew month of Sivan on the year 1313 from creation, in front of 2.5 million Jews. Even today, You can ask any Jew's grandfather or great-grandfather whether he believed in the revelation at Sinai, and they will tell you that they do. And that's probably because it actually happened.
Well, you know, it's funny you say we have these umpteen bajillion eyewitnesses, when it seems we only have a single source for the claim that there were so many. But here's the thing about saying that everyone saw you paint a mural to your own stupidity with poop. Trust me, bro, they all told me about it. But if I can't produce a single person or even a standalone testimony from one of the people who totally saw you do that, then I'm probably full of as much shit as you used to make the damn thing. And no, just because your family members are as gullible as you are doesn't make something magically more accurate.
Your DNA. Your DNA could stretch from the earth to the sun and back 600 times. And we're all 99.9% alike. And the human genome contains 3 billion base pairs of DNA. Did DNA, with all the above qualities, just evolve on its own?
Well, it didn't evolve on its own. It evolved as part of multiple complex systems that eventually came to rely on each other. Shocking that you don't know how evolution works. And speaking of complexity, just because something is complex doesn't mean it needs to have God done it in it. In fact, the fact that it's so unnecessarily long suggests that a mindless process created that thing over an all-knowing intelligence who surely could have done it slightly more succinctly. Or with, again, magic powers, not needed to do that at all.
Number 6, the planets revolving, the prime mover. The planets are moving, we can all see that. Anything moving has a mover. So what was the mover? The Big Bang? Well, what was the mover for the Big Bang? The atheist is forced to say, against logic, that there isn't a need for a prime mover of the material of the Big Bang.
We were not. At best, we are forced to say we don't know what caused the Big Bang, if anything. But here's the thing. We don't really think of the Big Bang as a mover of the universe per se. It's an event, a thing that we are pretty damn sure happened, but not an entity doing something because it wanted to or whatever. But as with all things, just because we don't know something specifically doesn't mean you get to come in and say your thing is correct. Also, there absolutely could be something before the Big Bang, and both it and atheism could and probably would still be correct. It's just a matter of figuring out what that thing is. And again, your guess is not more plausible just because you have one without working for it and because you want it to be.
Number 7, who started the Big Bang? If all of creation was in that ball, who made that ball go boom? There must be something that preceded the universe and had the power to put all the trillion galaxies into motion.
Well, that's just the same question again. I don't know. Probably nobody. Also, just because you want it to be a who doesn't mean that your question is valid. Ultimately, why is a more pertinent question anyway?
Number 8, colors. We're told that God made a rainbow after the Great Flood. What are the odds that rain droplets can create the exact spectrum of colors? Did that just evolve from some random events? We're talking about inanimate stuff here. We can't say it evolved. Or is it more likely that the colors were created by an artistic creator who knows the beauty of color?
Exact spectrum? What are you, 3 years old? Rainbows, at least as humans perceive them, is a tiny, and I mean teeny tiny, fraction. Humans perceive something like 0.0035% of the electromagnetic spectrum. So God made this thing that humans can barely see. And you're supposed to think he's a great artist by painting with colors that are functionally useless. Also, while I wouldn't say it evolved, the fact that you think that there's no use for the word outside of biological adaptation demonstrates that you are in fact utterly scientifically illiterate. A surprise to no one at this point, I'm sure.
Number 9, the existence of the Jew. The Byzantine Empire is gone. The Babylonian Empire is gone. The Roman Empire is gone. The Greek Empire is gone. Civilizations don't last throughout history.
It seems you're confusing people with places. A cultural identity that spanned multiple nation states and generations is not the same thing as various nation states. Often people of various cultural heritages existed within those particular places and would obviously survive their falls as well, just like many families do. The same way many ideas do. That doesn't suddenly prove that those ideologies or genealogies or whatever were meant to survive because God said so. Or that he's friggin' real.
Number 10, the creation of a baby. How does a sperm and an egg become a conscious baby who then becomes a full-fledged man or woman? There's too many questions to ask. First of all, doesn't it violate the law of conservation of mass that a human being goes from being 0 pounds to being 8 pounds to being 150 pounds? Where does all this new mass come from?
Holy shit, you are dumb. It comes from the mother eating food. And later, them eating food. You absolute moron. How does anyone not know that? And that's the problem, isn't it? You are unwilling to ask the question. So instead of learning how it works and why it absolutely does not require a god to function, you have decided that your ignorance is far more important than actually knowing things, because it lets you believe whatever the hell you want, I guess.
Number 11, the universe is larger than the Big Bang material. It doesn't make sense. In a similar problem, we're told that the raw materials of the Big Bang was very small. It was in a very small ball. The universe, however, is very large. In fact, it has trillions of galaxies. No matter how dense that ball is, there is no way it's fitting inside of it a trillion galaxies. It's ludicrous.
I mean, this whole thing is just one giant argument from incredulity, isn't it? I don't understand something, I am unwilling to learn, therefore God. In simple terms, it wasn't just small, it was dense, and pretty much pure energy, which appears to have no, or at least an incredibly high upper limit on how packed together it can be. So it's perfectly reasonable, if a little counterintuitive, to understand that everything that currently is could at one point have existed in a much, much smaller space. You not liking that answer doesn't make it not our best understanding of that event to date. And certainly doesn't mean that you can throw God done it instead.
The first combiner, who combined everything? Who fused the electron, the neutron, and the proton? Who fused hydrogen and oxygen to make water? Who fused the 4 types of nitrogen bases, adenine, thymine, guanine, and cytosine to make DNA?
No one. These can all be explained by various scientific principles such as chemical evolution, fusion, and general biology. No one needed to make them. The universe was already doing that. Also, isn't this the same question as your who started the Big Bang thing? Do you have an original idea? Please.
Number 13, a watch. Look at the watch you're wearing if you're wearing a watch.
No. You already did the watchmaker fallacy at the start, and it's a fallacy for a reason. And no, dude, in case you are wondering, fallacy doesn't mean really, really clever argument that makes you sound like a smart boy. It means bad.
Number 14, a similar one, a painting. Look at a painting in your house.
Similar one? I think you mean the exact same point again. If you want a refutation, go to the internet, type watchmaker argument, and it'll come up with countless debunks of that stupid argument. And we are simply not wasting our time on it today. Also, that means you have significantly less than 25 arguments considering how many repeats you have done already.
NDEs, near-death experiences. The Lancet Medical Magazine out of England has reported thousands of cases of people who were clinically dead, and yet their life went on. There were certain features that were common to all of them, such as a great light, a tunnel, and a life review. The commonality knocks out the possibility that these were just hallucinations, which would all be totally different.
Even if what you are claiming there is true anecdotally, aside from the fact that if near-death experiences were genuinely out-of-body phenomena, which they absolutely are not, but if they were, all that would prove is that mind and body are separated somehow, and not the goddamn real. But the fact is, similar experiences can be explained in multitude ways. Cultural expectation for one, Or, more likely, the simple fact that as a brain shuts off, it does more or less the same shutdown sequence for everyone. That would be no more mystical than the fact that everyone has to use the bathroom to evacuate their bowels. Even if a banging shit is a pretty magical experience.
Number 16, we are more than just our body. We are consciousness. We have a soul. If you cut off my arm, I am still Shmuel. Not less of a Shmuel, the exact same Shmuel that I was. So Shmuel is beyond the body. That's what we call a soul.
Nope, this one immediately fails, because if you start drilling holes in your head, you will very quickly discover that not only your personality can change dramatically, but you will also begin to lose much of your cognitive function. Although considering this video thus far, I can only assume someone beat you to it. But yeah, if that doesn't prove that brain and mind are intrinsically connected, I don't know what does.
Number 17, fine-tuning. The fine-tuning argument says that the present universe, including the laws that govern it, and the initial conditions from which it has evolved, permits life only because these laws and conditions take a very special form. Small, tiny changes would make life impossible.
No, it would likely make life as we know it impossible, but would likely result in the formation of other forms of life given small changes, and possibly completely different things that we would still call life with certain larger changes. Plus, we don't even know if the universe is even capable of being different than what it currently is. And life that forms within the universe is, of course, going to be the type of life that can form in that universe, because that's how, again, things that fall into various systems work.
Number 18, how do we really know what is good? How do you really know not to kill? If you grew up in Nazi Germany, you would believe it's fine to kill. And we could say that about many other civilizations throughout history. But how do we really know? Why does it bother us so much in the pit of our stomach if an innocent person is killed?
Wow, you really botched your own little tangent there. Does the person who grew up in Nazi Germany feel that it's okay to kill an innocent person or not? Although really, I don't think it's relevant to the actual point, which is where does the feeling of killing people bad come from? Which is, of course, completely explicable as an evolutionary adaptation. Communities are far more effective for survival than individuals are, so killing people for no reason doesn't tend to be a great idea.
Number 19, how the ball of the Big Bang got there. What was there before the raw materials of the Big Bang? If you say something, then that's not the raw materials before the Big Bang. If you say nothing, we can laugh you out of class because you're saying that nothing created something. And we all know that nothing only creates nothing.
You laughing anyone out of a classroom is an absolutely hilarious concept, especially considering no serious cosmologist asserts that there was a nothing. I don't really know where you're getting that from, apart from perhaps the inside of your own head. You know, because nothing creates nothing, lol. But isn't your argument that God created everything from literal nothing? Also, before the Big Bang doesn't make sense since time came from the Big Bang, therefore the concept of before it doesn't technically make any sense. Not that you knew that, but that would expect you to know anything.
Number 20, our bodies are well-built machines. Our bodies are more well-built than the smartest computer.
He says, sat there wearing friggin' glasses like it's not a massive design fault. Also, a smart computer does not have to be well made. It just has to be really powerful. I mean, my computer is incredibly powerful, and it's still a massive piece of shit.
21, Bible codes. Scientists are laughing at me now because they like to think that they have debunked Bible codes as a proof that God exists.
Well, yeah, of course they're laughing at you. You think that the Bible has ever remotely predicted the future with enough specificity to be worth a damn. But Bible code specifically? The idea that you can basically extract random words out of the text and line them up with real-world events? You know, insane conspiracy theory shit? It's not even considered a reasonable line of study by some of the craziest assholes on the internet. And you think you're going to somehow convince scientists and atheists in general that your fringe theory is anything other than the total horseshit it so clearly is? I admire your confidence, at least.
Proof 22, the moon. Our moon is the perfect size and distance from the Earth for its gravitational pull.
Nope, this is just fine-tuning again. It was bullshit the first time you brought it up, and nothing has, of course, changed since then.
Proof 23, the human brain.
Oh, come now, man. You can't use something that you don't have to prove something that doesn't exist. That's not how any of this works. Not that you would know. Again, no brain.
Proof 24 is short. Nothing creates nothing. Only something can create something.
Short, just like my patience is getting for this video, with you using the exact same talking point multiple times. You can say I have 25 or 100 or 1,000 or a billion arguments for something, but if most of the damn things are literally rehashes of each other, it's not great. And again, no one is arguing that. You are fighting phantom scientists in your empty head. Perhaps stop. Well, okay, you can have one more, I guess, but it better be good, original, and I cannot stress this enough, not be idiotic nonsense.
And finally, proof number 25, the Bible's predictions are true.
Womp womp. No, they are not. They never have been. And no, you can't use the vague ones about empires rising and falling and other ambiguous shit that always happens. Because that's like predicting that you are going to say something stupid today. Not exactly a difficult one to guess. And more so, you cannot point at things written in the Bible referencing itself and say, look, that thing I said was going to happen in my story happened in my story. It's foreshadowing, or Chekhov's gun, or any other number of literary devices. But what none of them are is proof that God exists.